Welcome back to Rebel Health. I'm Dr. Ellen Vora, a holistic psychiatrist based in New York City, but currently coming to you from Sydney, Australia. And today what I want to address is, what do you do if you're depressed and you don't want to start medication? Because I'm often coming on here and saying, be wary, don't necessarily reflexively start medication for depression. There are reasons to think it's not the best choice, both that for mild to moderate depression, it actually doesn't separate from placebo, it's not more effective than placebo, but then also that it can have some adverse effects, it can have a blunting effect, and then getting off of it is really challenging. So what else do you do, right? Like, I don't mean to leave people high and dry and just say do nothing, stay depressed. But what I think are the cornerstones of healing depression, it has to do with diet and lifestyle. It has to do with eating a nutrient-dense and non-inflammatory diet, which is no easy task in the United States because our diet tends to be really devoid of nutrients and totally inflammatory. So this is the cornerstone, but it's really hard to do. And it has to do with completely switching up the way you think of how you feed yourself. You start to switch over to real foods, you switch over to getting your food at the farmer's market, sourcing real foods, paying attention to the nutrition of it, not just the calories or whether or not it has fat or cholesterol, all these things we've been taught to focus on about food that aren't really what it's about. You want to focus on the nutrient density of it. So things like organ meats and the egg yolk and dark leafy green vegetables and eating fruits and vegetables with colors across the rainbow. And then eliminating the inflammatory parts of food. So that's like gluten and refined carbohydrates and sugar, and for some people dairy, and just all of these foods that we don't tolerate. One that I think really flies under the radar is industrially processed vegetable oils, so things like canola oil that are ubiquitous and really inflammatory, but you don't really even realize you're eating it. So it just happens anytime you're eating food that you purchased or food prepared for you in a restaurant or any kind of convenience food, they're preparing foods with canola oil. Even though at home you're cooking with butter and you're cooking with olive oil, if you're buying food out in the world, there's going to be vegetable oil. And so that's the diet piece, and it's hard to do and it's important. And after diet, it comes down to sleep. And you basically want to improve the quality of your sleep. And that usually has to do with getting to bed earlier and making sure you make it the priority so you're getting enough sleep, and also creating better quality sleep for yourself. And that has to do with things like the right bedroom conditions. That it be dark, that it be cold, that it be comfortable, that it be quiet, that you've cleared away the clutter. And then I think the number one single biggest factor when it comes to creating good sleep is actually getting the phone out of the bedroom. I know we all just want to keep our phones there. You read on it before bed, you look at it if you can't sleep, it's your alarm. I get it, it makes life easy and pleasant, but it is, I think, wrecking your sleep, and which is wrecking your mood and many aspects of your life. So just get it out of the bedroom. Set up your charger outside of the bedroom, say goodnight to your phone, go in there and have that be a sanctuary that isn't encroached upon by electronic devices. And then if you really struggle with sleep, create some kind of gradient of light to dark that happens in the evening around sunset. Ideally, it's actually the sunset. Like, ideally, you're on a beach somewhere beautiful and you're experiencing the fact that the sun is setting and the world is getting darker. But these days, we're usually in artificial settings where we don't really experience the sunset. So if you can, access nature and feel it, and if you can't, at least simulate it in your home by dimming the lights and stopping the screens and all of these sort of artificial stimuli that trick our brain into thinking that the sun is rising rather than setting. And that's diet, that's sleep, and then stress is a huge one. And we are all just chronically stressed. And I realize this more and more as I'm transitioning away from my regular work-life grind in New York City and living in these other settings where I'm just less stressed. And it is so interesting to feel my body unwind in these ways. So even if you don't identify yourself as stressed, even if you can't really recognize it, it's probably happening. And I encourage people to make big, rebellious, opt-out choices to have less stress in your life. Sometimes that means making less money, sometimes it means working less, sometimes it means not taking on the next most prestigious big project, sometimes it means being less ambitious, sometimes it means being more content. I just ask people to open up questions of what do you really need and what do you really want your life to look like, and sometimes it's not just the default settings that we've all been conditioned to choose. And then the last piece is exercise, and this one's hard because when you're depressed, that's the time when you have the least motivation to get up and exercise. And for me, the solution to this is just lowering your standards. So rather than joining a gym or getting a personal trainer or saying I'm going to train for a triathlon, don't worry about any of that big ticket stuff. Basically just make sure that you walk a little bit more, sit a little bit less, stand a little bit more, and then maybe for 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes a day, you do something muscle building. So maybe that's a little bit of Pilates in your living room, maybe you do some pull-ups, maybe you do some push-ups. Minimal, keep it minimal. Is if you're not gonna do anything at all, minimal is a lot better than nothing. Even if it's not training for a marathon, it's still gonna help you get that momentum where you start to feel a little bit stronger in your core and a little bit more active, and that will give you antidepressant benefits. So I hope this has been helpful, and we'll see you next time on Rebel Health.